Today we are driving around. We're gonna go do some stuff. It is just after the holidays, and I hope you guys are all doing well. Today I just wanted to talk about purpose in the micronational community. Now, this is something I've been asked a lot throughout my years of micronational development. People asking me questions all the time like, well, is this something that, anybody can create? Is this something that, what's the difference between a realist and a fantasy nation, which we've described before on the channel, but this goes a little more in depth. We're talking really about, the reasoning behind somebody developing their nation, what creates, citizen interest and things like that as a nation develops. And these are the tough questions that I want to get into. I want to discuss kind of why Aeternia was started. I've discussed that before on the channel, but more so how that plays into the purpose that we advocate toward our citizens and stuff like that. Again, I hope everybody's doing well. Let me go ahead and show. The Duke says hello. It's good to see you, the Duke. How are you? This might interest you today because we are talking a lot about purpose. So for us, purpose is really about trying to help people out of economic insecurity, trying to promote a collective community and trying to do so in a way that enriches the entire group of Aeternians that exist. As Aeternians, we first have larger collective goals to try to manage the resources that we're developing. Of course, we put all of our money that we've developed right now toward a land purchase. We try to create businesses which we can use to employ Aeternians, things like that are all helping toward our goals. But the ultimate purpose that Aeternia exists under is what drives those goals. And the reason that Aeternia exists is because of trying to promote things like economic security. We exist because of the difficulty that I have seen personally in how much people can struggle in places like the United States and other countries around the world. This is something that I have seen as even in, the most successful, the most economically vibrant nations, that there are very, very vast differences between the wealthiest in those nations and the poorest in those nations. And that is something that has always deeply concerned me, especially being on the latter end of that. And so for continual development of Aeternia, we always push toward that same purpose. We always push toward that same drive and that concept that we cannot simply exist as we have been existing. We have to always continue to push forward, trying to improve our economic mobility, and the best way to do that is as a group of people pulling together their resources rather than any one individual, in order to make things that are going to help improve our society and help to lower that gap between the wealthiest and the poorest. We have to be able to do things that enrich the community as a whole. And so this is something that is incredibly, incredibly important to me, and something that I've always strived for is to make a home for people like myself who want that economic mobility, people who want a place to feel secure in their job, people who want a place to feel as though, they can't be easily evicted from their home or apartment. This is something that allows for people to pursue actual happiness and actual development in their life outside of just simply trying to... Hey, thank you. It's good to see you. General Kenobi, everybody jumped in. Manu said, General Kenobi. Sergey said, why are you driving? Where are you driving to? That's a great question. So Tiffany and I are running some errands today. I'm not driving. I'm in the passenger seat. Tiffany and I. So we are driving around, doing some stuff today, visiting some people. But I wanted to get this message out there, and I really wanted to talk about the concept that we as micronationalists have to have a good purpose. People email me all the time asking stuff like, hey, how do I start my nation? How do I develop? Why aren't citizens joining all of our stuff? Why can't, we get more citizens? Why can't we get more views on social media and stuff like that? And to me, that always comes down to, well, what is your purpose? Why is it that you are trying to create a country? Because in my opinion, again, there are always realist versus fantasy nations, and fantasy nations are no holds barred. You can do whatever you want to develop a fantasy nation. Also, thank you guys for liking the video. It means a lot. In developing a fantasy nation, you can just do it because you want to, because you know at the end of the day you're not trying to pursue the legitimate care and support of your citizens. You are simply trying to have those citizens exist and support what you are doing as an ideological concept. However, for a realist nation, for somebody who says, I am legitimately trying to start a country, and I am going to grow that country and have it support a citizenship and have it have land that is independent of any other country in the world, if you were going to do that, then you need to have a good reason for your citizens to join. Because if not, why would they ever leave their home country to support you? Why is it not safer and more secure for them to do so from the comfort of their own home, where they can support the economy that they and their parents and their grandparents and so on for generations have already supported and established? Why would your system be any better? That's what you have to convince people of. That's what your purpose has to be. If you are a legitimate nation, if you consider yourself a country that is striving to develop for its citizens, those citizens need to have some benefit from that group existing, from that country founded. They have to have something that they are actively striving for, and some value that they see that allows them and makes them excited to invest their money and their time and their efforts into its development. Because otherwise, sure, plenty of people are going to come in and join you if you say, yeah, I'm starting something, and you can have something like a title. That's why we've always talked about, don't just give away titles. If you haven't seen that video, go and check out that video. The titles can be the destruction of a nation because people don't have a good purpose. They don't have something that is enticing and bringing in citizens. So they decide that a great way to quickly gain citizens is to say, well, we'll give you a title. You can be the vice president of the country. You can be, the regent over all economic activity. You can be this and that and the other thing. And then those people come in because they got a cool title, quickly realize that they have to actually develop that into something meaningful and valuable, and then they leave because they don't want to put that work in, because that's not what they expected. They had benefits that they were receiving, and then they realize that those benefits don't continue to produce fruit for them, so they leave. First off, it's good to see everybody. Again, thank you guys for liking the video. It means a ton. We have 6 viewers right now. Sergey, again, your question, where are you driving to? I appreciate that. We're going around. I'm not going to tell you specifically where we're driving to, but we're going around. Lazik says hello. It's good to see you, Lazik. Again, thanks for liking. The Duke says agreed. The biggest difference between realist and fantasy is their purpose. I consider DeKalb, Florida, short for Grand Duchy, semi-realistic microstate. That's respectable. And that's something that I want to talk about as well. It is perfectly fine to say that something is like semi-realist, or to have some nation that is kind of in between, because of course you can define yourself as purely realist or purely fantasy, but plenty of people have just small goals, which is perfectly fine. You know, you can say, yes, we consider ourselves a nation, we identify as such, but we also aren't trying to feed and clothe every single person that comes into our micronation. If that's your choice and if that's your opinion on how you want to develop, that's certainly fine, and you can do so. But if you have those limited goals, you should express that to the people who are interested. And that may even make them more excited to join you, because they can say, oh, I see what the goals of this are. I understand what the end vision for this development looks like, and it doesn't seem too hard to achieve. So they're more interested in pursuing those things that they see the outcome from and can visualize their own role in, rather than just something that has its claim of being realist and saying, oh, we're going to develop and we're going to make a country that's unlike any other country in the world, and everybody's going to recognize it and establish it and verify its existence. And yet there isn't like a guiding path or any steps that they can see that allow them to envision that actually coming true. So 100% respect that. People who have semi-realist micronations are probably just doing something very legitimate, and I respect that. IRNA says hello, it's good to see you. Again, asking where are you going? Around, we're driving around. The Duke says message retracted. I appreciate you guys liking. It seems like we have a 5-to-5 ratio. That's really solid. But I wanted to discuss the concept that, you know, when you develop, when you create a nation, when you are asking people to join you as citizens, you have to be able to do so in a way that clearly defines your goals, and more importantly than that, a way that defines to you what your purpose is. If you're trying to pitch a country to other people, but you can't convince yourself as to why you are certain that it is going to work. If you are not able to invest yourself, your time, your money, your resources, the things that you have into developing your country, why would anybody else? Leadership, as a general rule, is based around the showing of some value. The reason that people follow anyone is because they feel as though that person is going to help them achieve their goals and reach some higher status. It is the constant nature of any sort of political or economic development. Even companies have to define to their workers, what their jobs are, and to their investors what their goals are and what their products are. In the same way, micronations need to be able to define what the benefits that they have are to their people, and they need to be able to articulate their plans for growth and development to other nations and to the people who are considering for them, as well as any media outlets and anything like that. If you are truly trying to develop as a country, you have to have these things down pat. You have to have these things so ingrained in your mind that you can just rattle them off and you can talk at length about them. Again, the same thing for Aeternia. Aeternia is specifically about technological and economic progress. We believe that the way that we can achieve the goals that we are pursuing, the equality that we hope to establish for people, is by creating a system that supports automation, creating a system that provides benefits to those who help us to invest in it, but then allows us to take the profits from that and return it to the average citizen so that we can increase their economic mobility and continue that cycle of advancement. These people who are developing micronations right now, these people who are claiming to be realists but don't have a particular idea of where they're going and what they're doing, are taking resources away from other micronations in the community that sincerely do have a plan. Because when you say, I'm a micronation, you are saying to someone who hasn't heard of micronationalism before, this is what micronationalism is to some extent, because you are their first interaction with that. So if they have some misguided idea about what micronationalism is, they may have gotten it from a nation that they saw as immature, that they saw as undeveloped, that they saw as not lacking any sincere or legitimate benefit for its people. So they may make fun of that nation, they may, discredit that nation, but as well they may discredit the entire movement of micronationalism as a whole because they saw and said, oh, well, that person isn't legitimate, that person's silly, this has to be the height of micronationalism, truly. All of these people are a joke. And that is something that's really hurtful for me and really disheartening, I think, for a lot of micronationalists, because you have people who, without hearing your pitch, without understanding what it is that you are and are trying to do, will immediately discredit you and say, well, you're a micronation, you're never going to achieve what it is that you want to. But at the end of the day, that's not the case. If you truly have a good plan, if you truly have development, we in the Empire of Aeternia have shown it is possible to gain citizens, it is possible to gain revenue, it is possible to continue your advancement beyond some simple claim as to what you are doing. You are able to show proof to that, and you are able to devise continual, more detailed plans to ensure that, one, people feel comfortable investing in what you're doing, and two, that people are able to see the pathway that you are carving out for your development, whether they're working on that actively or whether they're people considering investing in that. Even people who criticize you really, really want you to either, one, develop a very flawed strategy, or two, to have no strategy at all, because it's great for their purposes. It's great to be able to say, hey, so this micronation claims all of North America, but they have no plans of how to achieve that. This micronation says that they have 150 citizens, but there is no economic proof of that. This micronation has 25 acres of land that they own, that they actually control right now, and they have nothing to show for that development. They have no production. They don't have anybody living there. These are all things that others, whether they're other micronations that are against your cause, or whether they are other media outlets that are against micronationalism in general, love to point out and love to call people out for. So don't allow your nation to be one of the ones that they use to contribute to the idea of micronationalism as a whole being flawed or being this failing idea. Because as you develop your micronation and as you continue to grow, you find success for your own ideas internally. You figure out what that path is and that way to grow and achieve your successes. But as you do that, you have to continue to check in with yourself to see if that is a realistic goal, to see if you would buy into your own idea if it were coming from another micronation. It's so difficult to advance as a country if you do not know where you're going, because you will spend time and resources and money trying to figure that out and trying different things, ultimately not to succeed. It's so rough. Hello, Baliga, it's good to see you. Again, thank you for the like. Today we are talking about Micronations and purpose. What is your purpose? Why are you developing your country? And please don't just say it's because you want to. There are so many micronationalists that is their entire purpose, that is their entire dream, that is their entire idea, is to just lead a country. You just want to play Civilization 5, you just want to play Civ 6 or whatever, you just want to play Europa Universalis or whatever the name of that game is. You just want to be called the emperor, the leader, the monarch, the president, or whatever. There are plenty of people who were interested in politics originally when they developed their nation, and they say, "Oh, well, I want to go into politics in the future." And then they'll say, "Well, I really couldn't develop too well in politics, so I'll join a micronation, or I'll start my own micronation." And then they'll go, "Oh, well, the micronation thing isn't working out. I guess I'll go back to traditional politics." And the problem for why that exists in those people's lives, and the problem for why people can't continue to get citizens and to gain support for their micronation, has nothing to do with that micronations as a concept are inherently flawed, or that the political system that they're working is inherently flawed. I think there may be more merit to that second idea. But even still, it ultimately comes down to that regardless of the situation that they're trying to develop, they are not gaining any support. And they're not gaining any support because they don't have an idea that can consistently convince people to support them. Robert, it's great to see you. Baliga says, "We want to be a micronation that lets citizens play a bigger role in leadership than any other nation." And that sounds wonderful, but that also sounds incredibly difficult. If you told me as a micronationalist, "Hey, I want you to join my micronation because you are going to have a bigger leadership role than anyone else in the micronational community who is an average citizen," I would say to you, okay, so that means that the larger that our citizenship grows, what you're saying is the less power I have. Because even if our micronation grows, it's not going to scale economically or politically to the same extent that it will grow in citizenship. You are saying you are going to give a lot of power to your citizens, which is perfectly fine. That is an ideal that you can absolutely pursue, and I definitely think a lot of people will be on board for that. But the thing that you have to think about after that, Baliga, is, okay, so then how do we make sure that that is consistently worth the same or greater value for every single citizen that is involved? Because if people feel like, hey, every time a new person joins our micronation, I lose a little bit of power, I lose a little bit of my voting ability, I lose the likelihood that my ideas and interests will be achieved, because more than likely it's coming through a voting system where people are inherently able to, amass power by support. So if I am an individual who joined a micronation because I think that I can get my fringe ideas established, and most people don't support those fringe ideas, then I will want to leave. And that may be fine for you, that may be the development of your nation continuing, but it's hard to claim that you will allow people to have the most benefit as an individual citizen of a micronation, that you will have the most power to support yourself, to support your nation, when the larger that you get, ultimately the less power that they may have. And I'm not saying that as a condemnation of the idea. I am saying that as a way for you to think about how you then pitch the next idea to somebody. If I were arguing against your idea, those are the points that I would claim, and those are the ways that I would say, oh, Baliga could never work because all their citizens lose power every time that they vote and stuff like that, and every time that there are new citizens that come in, it makes it harder for them to achieve anything, just like other democracies. You have to come up with a good answer for that. And that's fine. You may have one, or you may be able to develop one. As it does develop, though, you have to keep that in mind. You have to be the person who's criticizing your own ideas and saying, well, how could someone twist this around on me? How could someone turn this around to say that we're not doing the right thing, or we're developing in the wrong way, or that we're bad guys? You know, how do we show that we're doing something legitimate? How do we show that our ideas are justifiable? And how do we show that even if you are trying to condemn our position, that you still have to ultimately misrepresent the ideas that we are developing in order to truly discredit us? You have to have an airtight case for the reason that you were doing this, because eventually somebody will try to call you out for it. And it continues to adapt and evolve. I'm not saying that when you first develop your micronation, you have to have it stamped into its constitution or in its founding document that you are with a perfect idea and plan that will never be faulted. You have to change. You have to continue to develop. But I would say if you are trying to consider starting a nation and you don't have any clear-cut idea, if after the first or second question that somebody asks you, your idea falls apart, please don't start a micronation. And that's what we've been talking about for previous streams, is that we as the micronational community have developed a lot of advanced micronations. Just join another advanced micronation where your participation could mean the world and could advance your economic position considerably, because they need smart and capable people who are good at politics to continue to advance their positions and ideas with the general populace. But if you then start your own nation and you struggle to get citizens and you have a similar idea to someone else, then all you're going to do is continue to pull resources from that nation every time that you get power. You're going to continue to try to falter and change your ideas and switch up things in the hope that it will eventually get you to be in a unique position when there may be 10 or 15 other nations with your exact same ideas and motivations who've just been around for several years longer and who you may never catch up to. All micronationalism deals with progression. All micronationalism and all ideas in general have their own progresses and have their own changes and have their own generations, which are going to bring new and different ideas to the table and that will pass up the older generations. But that being the case, you have to be good at it to do that. You have to be really, really good. And all I'm saying is if you haven't been able to develop like you want to, or if you're starting out an idea that sounds like a lot of other nations, just support one of the other nations and make change there, because it's a lot easier to do. Multiple things. Robert, it's good to see you. I appreciate it. Robert says, I don't have a micronation reminder, just offering support to them reminder. Hey, I appreciate it. And we always want support, Robert. Again, if you're interested in joining our micronation, please consider it. But even if not, definitely think about the concepts that we're talking about here today, even as someone who doesn't run a micronation. Just when you encounter other micronations in the community, understand and kind of think about these ideas. Test their concepts a little bit and see if they hold up to your scrutiny. Because if they don't, or if you have sincere questions about how they're supposed to work or how they're supposed to develop, even Aeternia, please ask us. Please read our founding documentation and ask us questions. Because if we can't answer your questions, how are we going to answer questions on CNN? How are we going to answer questions to local media? How are we going to answer questions to people who have specific claims against us? These are all things. How are we going to answer this to other micronations who may be wanting to support us with monetary contribution or with trade deals? Also, Robert says, nice glasses. Thank you, sir. Also, please remember to like. We have 7 viewers, 6 likes on this. We're trying to get that ratio up. Robert says, gonna get some reheated ribs and stuffing later at 2:30. Very nice. Happy holidays. I know we are continuing to do things, hang out with family and friends and stuff throughout the holidays. Our holidays, because we celebrate Christmas, pretty much over, but we still have New Year's. Like, we're still in a gap where we have some stuff we're doing. Robert says, infiltrating another micronation to make it for your views. Just form your own micronation. No, I disagree. I say the opposite. If you have a similar idea to another micronation, do not start your own micronation, because all you're going to do is pull resources from that micronation. It is much better to join a micronation and contribute your ideas to develop that micronation further, because any micronation that has 10 legitimate active citizens over one that claims 100 that doesn't have any active mobile development, or anybody who sincerely spends hours and time and money crafting that future, will not survive. And all they are doing is being a parasite and a suck for the ones that are. Don't develop your own micronation. Join another micronation, especially if your micronation is not doing well, or if you have an idea for a micronation that just sounds exactly like other ones. Baliga says, eventually we will become an income sharing community, so the more people that join, the better you are economically. That means you want more citizens, not less. That's true, but you have to also have sincere industries that continue to help develop that, because just having more people as a part of the community doesn't necessarily, it makes it richer, sure, but it means that if everybody has different amounts of income coming in, right, and then they distribute that income equally, well, then that means some people are getting elevated in position, which is fantastic, but some people are getting de-elevated in position. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Some of those people may be happy to do that, but there needs to, I feel, be an additional benefit for those people. There needs to be some way that they are feeling that that contribution is worthwhile. And I think the best way to do that is by establishing industries, by saying, hey, you are taking a loss economically for being a part of this community, but you're also giving that money to a lot of people who need it, and more so, it's not something that they are just spending your money. They are investing that money in developing industries, which will make you all richer, will bring you closer to what you originally came in with, and will also bring everybody else closer to that too. Robert says, yeah, AP spitting facts as always. I think a lot about these concepts, and I saw a bunch of micronations before. Thank you very much, Robert. That means a lot. As well, Baliga, I definitely think this is like a strong argument. I 100%, I'd say continue that push. Continue doing what you're trying to do. Aeternia has similar stuff. We're definitely not like an income sharing community to that degree, but we are definitely something which hopes to use people's income and resources to develop industries, and those industries being something that is given, the profits and the benefits from those given directly as ways to elevate the economic situation of every citizen. So we also have our own engines and ways to develop that, but it is all with that idea in mind of continuing to economically elevate our citizens. So I 100% support you, Baliga. I would say continue on that idea and continue to push, figure out, what these questions are that people are going to throw at you. Sergey says, so basically joining a micronation is better than creating your own micronation? 1,000,000%. Yes. If you haven't seen our videos, I've talked about, there's a video we have on our channel right now called why you shouldn't start a micronation. It is in fact our most popular video on the channel, and it describes exactly that. The concept that, there are literally hundreds of micronations around the world. They, at any given time, there may be micronations being created, tens or maybe even, 50 or so micronations that have the exact same idea that are popping up all the time. And, they may have different names and flags and symbols and stuff, but at the end of the day, they're like, okay, so our idea is to be a democracy just like the United States, and we're going to develop a constitutional republic system just like the United States, but the only difference is we don't have the electoral college, and that's like a whole bunch of micronations. There are multiple micronations I've run into with literally that exact same idea, and they're like, that's what makes us so unique. And it's like, no, but there are other micronations who have that. There are plenty of micronations who are saying, we're a monarchy, but the reason that we're a monarchy is just because I want to be, and I'm just that, and I don't have really any idea for what I'm doing. I just want to be in power, and I know that a monarchy is the best way to do that. And it feels concerning for other monarchies that are like, no, but we actually have a reason that we're a monarchy, and we're trying to develop in this particular purpose. It's rough, and it makes other monarchies look bad. It makes the other types of micronations within your sphere, whatever the concept that you're working with are. If you are a bad micronation, if you're one that doesn't have a real legitimate reason for existing, then you are hurting those other micronations who are very similar to yours, which are actively developing for that purpose. As well, there are plenty of people who just develop micronations who are not familiar with micronationalism, or who are not familiar with politics or economics and how to develop those things, especially a lot of younger people. There are older people who have the same exact issues, but people a lot of the time are just not willing to join another group and to support another nation. So as we continue to develop and as we continue to grow, it is really, really important to remember that concept, that you should always support another nation before going to start your own, because you have no idea how much that nation will be able to benefit from your development. You have no idea how similar different nations out there might be to your concept. And at the end of the day, the more micronations that exist in the world, the more micronationalism can spread its ideas potentially, but that does not increase at the same rate that you are dividing up resources, the same amount of resources roughly, against a larger community. All these micronations are vying for resources from the same pool of micronationalists, from the same pool of citizens, from the same pool of people who are interested in micronationalism, because over 90% of the micronational community are people who start micronations. So you can't rely on the funding for your government and your country based on other people who are starting countries, because they want to keep their money for themselves, understandably, because they're trying to push toward their own ideals. But if you have people who can come together and say, you know what, the idea that I am trying to strive for is more important than actually running a country myself, and I can still play a huge role in running a country so long as it is another country that is being developed. I have a lot more that I want to say about this, and I have a lot more to continue developing on this topic, but I want to go ahead and read people's comments and then say I gotta go. So first off, Robert says, including a cringe fashion when run by a 12-year-old Fuhrer, gross. Umam says, VOY, FYI, good to see you. Robert says, my first introduction was the federal states of Delphia. Nice. Beliga says, this is why we'll expand slowly as industry grows. We plan on starting to make merch in 2022 and eventually wanting to grow microgreens, which is profitable. Then we will expand to other industries. Very cool. Congratulations. Sergey says, when it comes down to goals, whether it's to form or join, if you want to create a libertarian / communes, create a nation, but if you aren't promoting a radical ideology or trying to do so, join. I agree with that as well. Beliga says, also yesterday we were trending part 2 and part 3 in Micronations. Hey, congratulations. Robert says, remember Delphia. I gotta go, everybody. It was good to see you. I hope everybody has a continued happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all of that, and I will see you all soon. I appreciate everybody. Let me know what you think of this series. Peace, guys.